Hello, and welcome to the Project Elected podcast. Project Elect is a nonpartisan nonprofit whose goal is pretty simple. We want to get more Latter-day Saint women involved in public service. On this podcast, we interview amazing Latter-day Saint women who are involved in public service. Hi, my name is Audrey Perry-Martin. I'm the founder of Project Elect and the host of this podcast. Welcome. We have such a fun podcast for you all today. I am here with Patty Kubeja. She is a Kane County Commissioner, and she is actually on a county commission that is comprised completely of women, which is a tradition in Kane County. So we are going to talk a little bit about that, as well as Patty and her work as a county commissioner and her election and all of that good stuff we always cover. So Patty, thank you so much for being here. Would you just introduce yourself a little bit and tell us a little bit about your journey into public office and how you got here?
Well, I've been a resident of Kane County for almost 10 years. I moved here after I retired from the military as a lieutenant colonel. I had no intentions of getting into politics, but that's how life is sometimes. So I was enjoying retirement, and a couple people kept telling me I should run for office. I wasn't really happy with some of the decisions that were being made, so I decided to jump in, having no idea what I was doing. A little bit of background, I did spend 27 years in the military doing various things, traveling the world, and was enjoying living in Kane County and the beauties that are down here. So I guess I've been in public service in the military. This is definitely different. So I'm used to serving, used to doing hard things. It was a pretty rough election. I was running against the incumbent. Longtime resident. I was an unknown. Beat him in the first election in June. He filed as a write and ran against me again. I beat him again in November. And here I am.
Wow. That's incredible that you had to run against the same person twice in basically one election.
It was pretty stressful. I haven't committed whether I'll run again or not. I committed to 4 years. I really do miss retirement. Mostly my family, because they live on the East Coast or the West Coast. I have 8 grandkids that I miss being able to go see whenever I want to.
Totally. When was your election? What year were you elected?
The election was in 2022, and I took office in January of 23.
Okay, great. I also wanted to ask a little bit about your military service. That's so incredible. You were in the military for so long. That's not a story that we hear frequently. So would you tell me a little bit about what led you to serve in the military?
Sure. I had no intentions of being in the military when I headed off to BYU. I was waiting for a missionary, thought I would get married and have a bunch of kids and life would be good. That didn't work out. I was in depressed summer, and I got a letter in the mail saying you could go to Fort Knox, Kentucky for 6 weeks and earn $700. And I thought, that sounds a lot of money, and it'd get me away from my situation. And my mom said, maybe it's an answer to prayer. So I thought, okay, let's go. So I had a great time. Still didn't intend to commit myself to the military. But when I got back, I decided to join the National Guard, take a scholarship, and then decide what would happen after that. A year later, I decided to go on a mission. So I went on a mission to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I got back from my mission, decided that active duty would be the best choice for me at that time. Still had no intention of ever staying in my whole life. It just worked out that way. So I spent 10 years on active duty, was back at Fort Bragg. I was in the 82nd, jumping out of airplanes, deployed to Desert Storm. Then I was over in Germany, which we loved. Had 2 children, wanted to stay home with them. So I got out of the military, ended up getting a divorce, realized I needed a job. So I went back in the military as a reservist and did that for 3 years on active duty as a reservist. Then I got remarried, so I didn't want to keep traveling and got out of the military again. Then I was deployed to Iraq. I had become a certified financial planner, but I just couldn't do the sales part of it. I realized I'd rather be in a war zone than do sales, which is sad. Anyway, I got a stateside deployment, did that for 3 more years. My family was able to stay in the same location, and I volunteered to go to Afghanistan so I could hit 18 years active duty and then retire at 20. So all in all, it was a good ride, and I was able to retire at 50. Then I moved to Kanab. I didn't know anything about Kanab. My husband fell in love with Kanab. Some good friends lived here, and he wanted to buy a house. So I told him, whatever you want to do, just don't ask for my help. I'm busy. And so he bought the house, and we moved here 2015.
You were in all the hot spots. I'm sure you have many stories from those days, and that's very brave. Thank you so much for your service. It's an incredible story. Let's talk a little bit about your run for office and public service then. I would love to hear the history of Kane County and women being in elected office and kind of being all the elected officials in a town or county. Can you tell us a little bit of the history of that?
It happened back in 1911 as a joke. Their husbands put their name on the ballots and they won. So they decided to take it and run with it, which I think is an awesome thing. They had children. Some of them had children while they were in office, and it wasn't an easy road to toe for them. They didn't always have the support of the men in town because of the initiatives that they were pushing. They started the cemetery. They cleaned up the town and stopped the animals from wandering around. They also were cleaning up the drinking. At the time was a very big thing. So they did great things for Kanab, and I think different things that the men were doing. The story is they couldn't keep a sheriff on the payroll because he'd get quitting, because he'd get razzed so much for working for women. So things have changed since then. I feel very fortunate for their footsteps that I can follow in, but I don't have to deal with the same things today.
It sounds like they were doing great things, though, and how ridiculous that it started as a joke, but then they did all these amazing things for the city. And now you have, I think there's 3 of you on the county commission, and the full county commission is women. How has that been? And you were on it, I think, before it was all women, and has that changed since it's been an all-woman commission?
So when I was elected, Celeste Myers was also elected. So that made 2 females and 1 male. I've heard that there are about 2 other times that a female was on the commission. So we're not the first females. And then this last election, Gwen Brown beat out the incumbent, and it became an all-female commission. And I think it's going great. Celeste and I had a good working relationship before Gwen joined the team. So I think we have a good foundation of communication and working together to solve the issues for Kane County. And none of us at this point have our own agenda that we're going rogue on. We try to be very careful and make sure we at least have the support of one other commissioner.
That's incredible. I love that you guys seem to be working together and getting great things done. So what kind of issues have you been working on? What are you proud of that you've done on the commission?
I don't think this was necessarily a measurable accomplishment for me, but I feel pretty proud that I have been out there going to the meetings and meeting the people. The most frequent comment I get is, wow, a commissioner has never come to this XYZ event. One of them was the Board of Equalization, which is when citizens aren't happy with their tax assessment, they can come in and present their case of why they feel like their taxes should be lower. And this lasts for a couple days. We hire an outside person who's an expert in valuation of properties. And he told me he'd been doing it since 2007 for Kane County, that a county commissioner had never come. If you don't go and see the process, like, how do you know what your employees are going through or what the real issues are? So I am happy to travel all over the county. I go way out to Church Wells to one of the meetings for a special service district as often as I can. I now have a special service district up on the mountain, Cedar Mountain, that I'm responsible to liaison with. And I think it means a lot to the people to have the commissioners. And I think all of us have been out there. We go to the chamber meetings. One thing we've heard is before commissioners never went. I don't know if it's because people were unhappy with them and they didn't want to get yelled at, but I think we're very available. We're out there. We are doing our best to be transparent. We have a bi-monthly newsletter. We make sure and post things on our county Facebook page multiple times a week. doing our best to communicate with the citizens, that they know who we are, they know where they can come and talk with us, good or bad.
That's so important. And I love that attitude of being available and going to different meetings and commissions and committees within the county that maybe hadn't been getting a lot of attention, and making sure you know what's really going on. That's so important, and I'm sure very appreciated in the county.
I was an unknown, and I think people have been pleasantly surprised that I wasn't the ogre they thought I was, and I've been easy to work with. There's always a lot of trepidation when there's changes in elected officials. Commissioners come and go. We've, for some reason, developed a bad reputation, at least in Kane County. And I don't know why that is, but we're trying to change that. So people aren't afraid to see us walk in their office.
That's great. You mentioned your campaigning and how you ran twice against the same person, and a little bit about maybe how you were an unknown. Did you face a lot of negativity in your campaigning, and how did you deal with that?
Yeah, the first campaign, the first time wasn't quite as contentious. The second one was very contentious, but I had good people behind supporting me. Didn't know anything about running a campaign. Probably would do it differently if there's a second time around, but we're grateful for those who were supporting me and wanted to see change. That was, I guess, those behind me were the ones that weren't happy with some of the decisions that were being made by the current commission. And right now, I have to put it all behind me, because then all of a sudden I'm having to go to meetings and work with people who maybe said not so nice things about me on Facebook or in the newspaper or whatever. I've just tried to put it out of my mind and have a fresh start, and people are coming around. So I think that's a success.
That's great. That's a great approach to it. And I would imagine your time in the military has made you pretty able to handle everything.
I campaigned on that I could do hard things because I jumped out of airplanes. So I have to tell myself that. Maybe I felt like quitting, and this isn't what I really want. Like, I told them I could do hard things. So I got to carry through with my promise of doing hard things.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like you really have. When you ran for office, it sounds like you were recruited and people were asking you to run. Did you have any sort of experiences where your faith came into play, where you felt like this was the right thing to do? And how has your faith played into your desire to be a public servant?
I definitely prayed about it, talked to my husband about it, because it's not just affecting me. I'm gone a lot. Sometimes he'll go with me when I have to drive out to meetings, which is nice, and I appreciate his support. And even my family, they don't get to see me as much, or when I am there, I'm not always present. Like, I have meetings to go hop on. It's nice that I can. It's a part-time job. I say it's full-time job for part-time pay. So I'm not expected to be there 9 to 5 every single day, but I have meetings at night, and some days are long. Once in a while, I'll have a day that's a little lighter, but I think all of my family's there to support me. And I feel bad because I'm not always, I can be there, but sometimes I have to go jump on a meeting, or I'm on my phone and a little distracted. So that's the part I missed retirement, when I didn't have any other stresses. But I definitely felt like it was the right thing to do. And that's what I needed to do right now. I do feel like I wouldn't have probably won the election if I didn't have the military background. Some people had told me, I voted for you because of your military, even if they knew the other candidate for many years. So thinking back on my life and what took me in, I didn't ever plan on being in the military. That wasn't my life goal, but I think it prepared me for this job. And maybe in the end, that's one of the reasons I was in the military. I thought maybe it's for different reasons, but in the end, I know that I'm pretty sure that I would not have won the election if I didn't have the military experience, or have the confidence even with all the leadership opportunities in the military. And, even now, my faith plays a role in trying to pray about decisions that are made, because we had one that was really hard just recently. Our county attorney was picked up to be a judge. So we had a vacancy, and we have a deputy. It was the county commission's responsibility to choose a replacement until election can be held. And it's a small town. There's lots of opinion. I'm trying to really just figure out who was best for the job at this time, and maybe not necessarily what I wanted, what was best for the county. And I really struggled with that. And I didn't necessarily feel like I got a direct answer from God, like this is the right answer. Like, I still think about it. Did I make the right decision? But I'm grateful that I have that faith to rely on when I have to make those hard decisions, and use it in my everyday life, everyday choices.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
So, what advice would you give to women who are thinking about entering public service and who are thinking about running for office? Do you have any good advice for them?
I suppose if people hadn't reached out to me and like, yeah, you'd be a great commissioner. I don't even know anything about being a commissioner. It's like they saw something in me that made them feel like I would do good at the job. So it is important to encourage other people that you see, other women, because we often probably don't have that confidence, especially if perhaps somebody's been a stay-at-home mom or hasn't been out in the workforce. But there's so many things that I've done both. I feel very fortunate. So after the 10 years I was in, I stayed home for 2 years. My son was 2 at the time. My daughter was 5. And then I stayed home for another couple of years after I got out. So I've seen both sides, and I've seen the arguments of it's harder for the stay-at-home mom or it's harder for the mom that goes to work. I thought I was very patient when I worked every day, but then when I had to be home with my kids, I realized maybe I'm not as patient when I can't just drop them off at the babysitter. There's difficulties on both sides, but the skills you learn, even if you stay home, you're managing so many things, the things you do at church, the things you do in your community. So I would say the advice is to get involved at whatever level, like whether it's a club that you like, a quilting guild, or that starts giving you the experience and maybe the confidence. It's a big sacrifice. And so I know Utah's on maybe lower on statistical of women in politics, but sometimes I don't necessarily agree with the rhetoric of the women are not treated as fairly in Utah, because you look at Kanab and Kane County, we have women, like the opportunities there, but I think what they do as a mother and for their families there's no price to be put on that. So we have so many wonderful people in Utah. I'm not even from Utah. My grandparents were. Wasn't raised in Utah, but the entrepreneurs were number one in so many things, and that's because of the people that were raised by mothers and dads, and it all plays a role. But when the time is right, I think you'll know. And it's a big sacrifice, so it's not an easy decision to try to convince somebody to run for office. You take a lot of negativity. You have to try to let it roll off your back like a water on a duck. Like you can't hold on to it. And especially with social media, it's so negative out there often. Not too often people say positive things. It's easy to say the negative things, but not too many want to jump in and maybe be a commissioner themselves. But they can tell us what they think we should do. Yeah, like I say, it's not for every woman and it's not for every man either. But I think men maybe sometimes have more of the confidence that they could do that. But I think it's important. I wasn't ever involved in politics because I was very busy in the military, but I still volunteered, so like at the school. So I think just getting involved at the small steps when you can, and there's a time and a season for everything. When you're a young mom with a lot of kids, it's probably not the time to be a politician. There are some young ones out there, just you yourself and your family and the needs. And I think if you're in tune with the Spirit and take it to the Lord, you'll know and be willing to jump in. It's a scary thing.
That was great advice. I appreciate that. That was a lot of wisdom right there. We always ask our guests if they have an invitation for the people who are listening, something they can do in the next few days, in the next week or so, to move them closer towards a potential run for office or getting involved in public service somehow. Do you have an invitation for our listeners?
I would say go to a public meeting, whatever it is. It could be a city council, a planning and zoning. See what's happening out there. We often just trust our elected leaders to do the right thing, whatever the right thing is. And it takes a lot of time. Like I go to a lot of meetings. If I don't go, I listen to a lot of meetings. So most of them nowadays, you could even watch from your living room. They're on Zoom or Facebook. And a lot of them are recorded. You could watch later or listen to later. You could sign up on the Utah Public Notice website, which you could get notified of when the meetings are. And that's where the recordings and the minutes. So that would be a step, like to even find out who your leaders are, because there's an issue going on in Kane County having to do with a new law that you can make a developer can make a city without any residents and gives them a certain amount of time to get the residents there. A lot of people are very upset about that. And I like contact your state senator and the lady didn't even know who the governor was, which surprised me, but I suppose because I'm in politics, I know who the governor is. So figure out who your elected leaders are and start listening to a meeting and what's going on, and maybe it'll give you confidence that you could do the same thing and you have an interest in it. Find out what interests you also. There's school board, there's library board, there's all kinds of things to get involved in.
That's great advice. I love it. So dial in or go to a meeting and start to learn more about what's going on around you in the community. That's a great idea. Patty, we're out of time, but thank you so much. This was so much fun talking to you and learning about your fascinating background and all the great things that you've done in your life. I appreciate you taking the time and talking to us today.
You're very welcome. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you all for listening to the Project Elected podcast. For free resources and materials, head over to projectelectwomen.org. We're also on Instagram and Facebook as Project Elect Women. We'd love for you to subscribe, rate us, or give us a review on iTunes. So until next time, thank you.